Let's kick things off today. Happy Friday, everyone. There's been a lot going on in the space this week, but I think it's a really great topic to kind of wrap up the week on and talk about some of the really hot topics that are kind of bubbling up around the digital media landscape and kind of the NFT ecosystem. And I know we have some various guests here kind of coming from different angles of it that I think it's going to really lend itself to a great conversation around content creators, AI, the tools people are using, and how we can leverage kind of tools on the blockchain to provide authenticity to some of this stuff that's being created. So let's jump into some intros and kind of meet some of our guests here as well. So let's start off with Natalie. Natalie is here from Numbers Protocol. Natalie, can you give us a quick intro?
Yeah, sure, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie from Numbers Protocol. It's glad to. Wow, nice. It's glad
that was your own
spend
team.
the Friday.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised of the claps. Okay, so it's glad to spend my Friday with you all. I'm currently based in Taiwan, and I'm mainly in charge of the partnerships, talking to different organizations, content creators, or any artists who are interested in numbers service. And so I'm like open to all kind of chat. If you find that there's any cool ideas you wanna collaborate with numbers, so feel free to drop me a message. Let's get on the call for chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us. I know it's probably a way different time for you. So thanks for hopping on. We're going to kick it over to Jesse. Jesse is from Capture App and would love to hear more about you.
Hi, yeah, I'm the advisor and the creative director over at Capture, and I've been working very closely with the Numbers team and the brilliant Natalie and Tammy's one of the co-founders. I'm based in London. My background is I've been working with big museums, art galleries all over the world, mainly in London, and been working with digital, now Web3, for the last 2 years. So that's me.
Awesome. Welcome. Thanks for joining us, and excited to hear more. And then we also have Robert Alice, our artist guest here. Can you give us a quick intro?
Hi guys. Yes, I'm also based in London with Jesse. I've been in and around the kind of crypto art blockchain space for a fair few years now. Sold the first NFT at Christie's, curated a number of big shows, and organized a number of big NFT conferences. And later this year, I am releasing one of the first kind of major art histories of the NFT space, which is published by one of the world's biggest publishing houses. So yeah, as part of that, I've worked a bit with AI myself as an artist, but really kind of focused on AI from a research and writing point of view. So yeah, excited to see where the chat goes.
Awesome, thanks, and looking forward to that project as well. Sounds really cool. So thanks for joining us, and then we'll kind of kick it over to the Avalanche team. Dominic, you want to say hello?
Yep. Hey everyone. It's nice to meet and see some friendly faces in the audience. I'm Dominic. I head up the NFT vertical here. I've been here for a few months, and so really excited to speak to the Numbers team and get into this topic of AI and creators.
Amazing. Thanks, Dom. And Tiffany, I will let you introduce yourself and then kind of take it away with the Q&A here.
Awesome. Hi guys. My name is Tiffany, and I lead NFT growth here at Avalanche. Excited to co-host this space with our partners, Numbers, who I met in person in Taiwan as well, which is an asset-driven protocol that's able to trace and verify digital media to address major issues that we have today, such as like misinformation, copyright, and royalty distribution. And fun fact that Money Numbers Protocol is actually female founded by Tammy as well as Sophia. So a big, amazing point there. And with those topics come an added complexity of AI, which is a really heated topic today. So we have with us creative director Jesse and artist Robert Alice to discuss how we can kind of break the barriers and often kind of a standstill that we have between AIs and creators through content authenticity. So with that, would love to go to Natalie first to learn a little bit more about numbers protocol for those who don't know what it is, and more about how they verify assets on chain. Natalie, are you there?
Looks like she might still be on mute there. Natalie, you might have to come off mute on your speaker button there.
Well, while we wait for Natalie to do that, let's go to Dom to talk a little bit about how authentication and verification and why that's important for art and NFTs, and how we kind of see it playing a role in our Avalanche ecosystem.
Yeah. So, I think we got somewhat lucky early on in that when we started developing some of our strategy here, there was this idea of like authentication of real world assets that was baked into Avalanche's really our core here, right? And so we thought of like, well, what better way of being able to address that in the NFT space by authenticating actual like art pieces, and like there's a whole bunch of really amazing primitives that you can do once you've actually tokenized an art piece. But getting into a little bit more, as we met with some gallery owners, as we met with just some traditional buyers, we started to hear some common themes specifically around that, like getting authentication and putting that authentication on chain for our pieces. And some of the things we heard from those people that was like really primary for them was this idea that, hey, when I want to buy a piece of art, it's important to kind of see, where's that, how has that been transacted, right? Like who's made those purchases? What does that look like? And so this idea of having an ability to see into the historical transfer of a piece of art is a powerful. It's a super powerful thing that a lot of people wanted. So that was at least for me the primary where I was like, oh, okay, so the people in the space that currently are working at galleries, are buying, like this is important to them. These are topics they care about, and they're actually like they want, right? There's a demand from the market to get this. So yeah, I would say that's probably the main one that I've heard. There's also like provenance things of being able to say, hey, this is now on chain. It's going to live on chain forever. And there's like, it definitely plays a role in that aspect as well. Some authentication as well. So being able to, there are issues at certain galleries or at certain auction houses with selling counterfeit pieces. So being able to have like a receipt that this is real, this is authentic. We've spoken to several auction houses, and that is always somewhat of an issue too, is being able to get authentication from estates, the title, like how long it takes for them to send those documents over, then having to verify them. It's a very long process for them. And even then, sometimes some still slip through the cracks. And so, there's a lot that can be offered for that vertical. And I think there's a lot that's going to be explored over the coming years.
Yeah, and authentication is super important, but something that's super difficult as well. So we were lucky enough to have Numbers actively researching and solving this problem. So back to Natalie. Hopefully you can hear me now. Would love to give the audience an introduction of Numbers protocol, what you guys are doing, and how you guys are doing verification and authentication on our subnet. Natalie, can you hear us?
I don't see Natalie on my screen, just a heads up. I don't know if she lost connection with us.
Looks like she's a speaker on my screen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think Twitter has been buggy these
Yeah.
Definitely.
We keep getting rugged on spaces.
Okay, I think we'll try again, but we can move a little bit over to Jesse, because I think Jesse's been working very closely with Natalie, especially on the Capture app, which is a use case of numbers protocol. If you can give us an introduction there, and maybe give us your version or your angle of what you've seen numbers been doing in the space.
Hi there, thanks Tiffany. Hopefully you can hear me. Yeah. Hopefully you can.
Yeah, you're good.
You can. Oh,
sure.
phew, thank goodness.
I know, right? You're good.
So yeah, Capture's like the public-facing app of numbers protocol, which is like an asset-driven blockchain. I'm not going to steal Natalie's thunder, so she can talk more about numbers, but Capture's the public-facing side of things, and basically Capture is all about taking the power of blockchain to everybody, to newbies, the wider public, the mainstream. You don't have to be tech savvy, which to me personally has always been a barrier, blockchain technology and Web3. So Capture is very much designed to give people a very simple understanding of NFTs, blockchain technology, what numbers does, and the whole point of Web3, that creative vision that underpins it, around decentralization. Capture it's the world's first Web3 camera app. What really drew me to it, and it's proving really popular, and it's been downloaded just over 800,000 times. We're reaching 180 countries now, and what it does, it turns your photos and films straight into NFTs with a few taps and a few swipes, of your fingers. So everything is housed under an app. It's really, a bit of a dream. So it's all within the app. You can sell art, you can buy art, you can build your own community. So there's this brilliant Web3 social function that's been integrated into the app as well. And you can follow other creatives, other collectors. The team in Taipei, which is where Capture's based, are building out functionality where you can even publish your own articles in the app as well, and have direct messages and conversations, with other users. So it's really, really good. But really, at the heart of what Capture's trying to do is just make the art world a bit more accessible as well. If you're a creator, the art world itself, which is, we've been operating in, I'm trying to make it less elite. It's a very elite industry, and really this creative journey we're all on, whether you're an NFT native or an artist interested in technology and digital, it really should have no boundaries. And tech is quite, understanding blockchain technology is a bit of a boundary. So everything Capture really stands for, what we're doing is about helping artists, helping creatives have control over what they're doing, having a one-to-one connection to their collectors, but also having control over their artwork as well. And this is really where Natalie and the team at Numbers come in, because it's all about having control over, where your image is, your the authenticity, the provenance. You every time you upload a work to Capture, it's verified, it's secured, it's owned under your name, so you're protecting your copyright. And then obviously we're all talking about this right now, but it's a big deal with a world of fake images that are coming out. AI is really interesting, the effect that has on who is the image producer or creator of that photo or artwork. And you don't want to get an ad agency coming along to rip your art or your photos, lift it from Google and use it in their latest ad campaign. So Capture adds provenance, and it tracks images, and Captures just the very easy, you pick up your phone, you create an NFT, you can sell it, you can track your work, and that's it. It's very, very simple. And my take, and just to answer your second question there, Tiffany, the take on where we're going at the moment is, I think there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of challenges in AI, and obviously people like Robert Alice have been working this space brilliantly for years. But also, I saw it about 6 years AI and art first came on the scene when I used to work at Tate. There was a brilliant project there, which is in partnership with Microsoft and Reuters, which is a big news media agency, and using the Tate collection, so it's about 50,000 artworks with about 500,000 press images, and mashing up data to produce artworks that represented what was in the news and so forth. So it's really, things have really moved on, but now AI is, starting to reach the mainstream. It's front page of a lot of papers now. So, within the creative industry, it's a bit of a worry because, we're all for artists raising money for themselves, and, artists have a really hard time making money as it is. Thank God for NFTs. Some of those artists are starting to, get a bit of a return. But to have your image and your life's work kind of scraped and then kind of used as part of another work and then not get credited, is a bit of a, is a really big worry. And, don't get me wrong, I'm all for collaboration with AI. I think it's brilliant, obviously, and it will rapidly changing the world. But I think if you're using AI, it needs to be clearly stated. It needs to be defined. And, as a creator, or if you're using an image, you need to have it credited, just like any other within the music industry, the fashion and design industry, and now the art industry. Accreditation and provenance is crucial. And this is a lot of the work that, when Natalie, hopefully when she gets connection, she'll talk about. But yeah, AI tools, you need to state, if you're using an image, you need to state and get authorization from that copyright holder. And so I really want to see AI platforms develop where either they're just using copyright approved images, or, you go down a process of just making sure that you are the owner of that content before you use it. So it's a long-winded answer there, Tiffany, but I hope that makes sense.
No, that's amazing. I think like making art accessible is super important, and AI has really allowed that to happen, but also create a lot of different best practices, controversies that we're still having to work through today. And checking in, is Number able to connect and speak?
Yeah.
Do you want to give it?
Yeah. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. I think it's
great. Yeah, Natalie, would love to have your take on numbers protocol and AI.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think Jesse already mentioned quite a lot of what numbers do, so I'll just also do a quick intro of what like our team has been working on. Well, numbers protocol is an open source ecosystem for digital media, so we can say it's a gate of Web3 for cross-chain asset tracking and management. So the vision of Numbers Protocol is to build a library of digital media files to provide transparent and verifiable media relations. So I would say that we are the first asset-driven protocol to make digital media traceable and verifiable. So there's a process of capture, seal, and trace behind the scene. So let's say by making the digital content traceable and verifiable, we will be able to address the critical issues in the digital media space, such as the misinformation, copyright, and royalty distributions. And I think Jesse also mentioned about the AI, which is currently going on in a space. I think there are also a lot of issues coming with it. So that's why that we think that the numbers could play a big role here. That's to help, not just the content creators, but also the content platform as well. And our technology has been implemented in the real world use case, such as Reuters that covered the 2020 U.S. president elections, as well as that we support preserving the world's first Web3 war crime evidence in Ukraine. And on top of that, we are also involved in the NFT space as well. I think Dominic also mentioned quite a lot of how the NFT space is evolving. So I think numbers was part of it, and to grow and also to support all the players in the market.
Awesome. Thank you for that intro. And excited to see how numbers through capture apps and also in the future different applications to further that mission of verification and authentication. And let's go to Robert, Alice, who's our artist, who can have your take. Can we have your take on the challenges that you see artists are facing currently with AI verification and authentication? We'd love to hear your take and work on the subject.
Hi guys. Well, I think I mean, there are so many different things to look at. I think from the kind of copyright, licensing, legal, kind of ethical issues, there's still so much territory, as always with new technology. It kind of shines a light on the existing frameworks and how they don't quite work for us. The US Copyright Office has just ruled that artificial intelligence programs are unable to hold copyright, which means that if you make an AI work as an artist, unless you have ownership of the data sets behind it, it's dubious as to whether you can sell it or not in some major jurisdictions. So the other thing is less so about how content creators can use AI tools responsibly or ethically, but more looking at how can AI tools use content creators kind of responsibly and ethically. And I think that's kind of important. Like Jesse's talked about all these data sets that are being trained on artists' images. It provokes very interesting questions about originality that go all the way back to kind of Walter Benjamin and the idea of aura. That's still being challenged, and I don't think there are any clean-cut answers for it. I think on both sides, as Jesse has mentioned, you have one side which is to say that you must have kind of full ownership of the data set that you use, but that's obviously fundamentally limiting, and it's limiting the scope of new art. The beauty of AI is to train huge data sets and allow you as an artist or a human to engage with a volume of imagery and or data that you would never possibly be able to get through and visually synthesize as an individual human. So there's kind of a tension there, but we're already seeing those tensions being worked out kind of legally. Like Stability AI recently sued Getty Images for using its images. It was sued by Getty Images for using its images in its training data. So that legal framework is going to come around. I guess what's kind of exciting is to scope forward 20 or 30 years' time and say, well, what happens if we live in a Web3 world where everything is all on Web3 rails and all images, or the vast majority of images, are secured as NFTs, with the correct licensing behind them and the right smart contracting that would allow the image owner and or creator to be able to kind of toggle whether those images could be scraped or not, and then receive micropayments for it. And that's quite a persuasive world, but is somewhere that we're kind of almost AI is well ahead of where that world could be. But I think that's a really interesting kind of future vision for how decentralized economies will work with AI.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Natalie, wondering in Numbers Protocol, have you guys thought about like long term, since it seems like there's still a long ways from what the actual best practices could be in order to kind of resolve all these conflicts that we have today?
Well, I think I was also thanks Robert Ellis to mention about the losses, because I also came across the news a couple of days ago, and also I recently have quite some interesting conversation with some AI companies as well. I think in the domain is that they also slowly starting to realize that the issue of like what Robert mentions, that the originality of those data sets, some of the creators might not wants their styles, their content to be part of the trend as well. So like he mentioned, the license is really a very important part of it, is that the artist would be able to authorize his work to be part of the training or not, or to be used or not. So for Numbers is that we believe is that the adoption will be important to coming from the creators themselves, but also from the content platform as well. Of course, it's still a long way to go, but we believe in this, that this is really coming in the near futures. And I also heard that there are a lot of discussion around the digital trust on the internet. I think the traceability and authenticity for the digital medias is not only just the image, the arts, even the music as well. So a lot of the content creators, the artists in the various domains, I do think that they are searching in a better way of how they could better protect their creations. And numbers, we think that, well, an interesting story or the say is that the misinformation or those manipulation of the medias is actually, well, we found that this issue is actually being created because of technology. So, and numbers, we also think that, well, that's where technology could also help to try to solve the issues. That's where we stand, and we hope that in the really near future we could see that adoption will slowly growing in the different industry.
Thanks, Natalie. So I guess the next question could be for Robert, Alice, and Jesse. How can content creators today use tools responsibly and ethically while we're developing these technologies to clarify what those rules may be?
I think they have two choices. They can do what artists have always done and break the rules and just push the barriers and ask provocative questions and do what Richard Prince did for copyright in the 90s. And that's a really useful societal role that they should play. Like, in many ways, I don't think artists, their duty is to be ethical, is or sometimes to be unethical in the way that they push those boundaries and allow the rest of the world to kind of figure out, pick up the broken pieces from those experiments. And then the other side is obviously to look at it and try and develop some kind of important, in many ways, in the same way that kind of NFT royalties have been challenged. And there's now this kind of strong social consensus around people in the NFT community about the importance of NFT royalties, even though they're not enforceable at the smart contract level. The same systems of kind of social contracts may come around with AI, and people may have strong kind of ethical reasoning for why they use certain data sets, why certain data sets aren't to be used, and those things can kind of be figured out in real time. I don't think there are any clear-cut answers on either way. I don't know. What do you think, Jesse?
Yeah, no, I was really enjoying listening to your 2 points there. That's so true. I think for the last year I've been working very closely with photographers from a traditional contemporary photography background, and for those guys, and I've been helping them kind of make that step into Web3 and generating NFTs and so forth. And a lot of this issue around copyright it's quite normal for them, because photographers sometimes are seen as a little bit more commercial, and they a large percentage of them have had their images taken and put into magazines, front covers, ad campaigns, and they've had to kind of stand up for themselves to get accreditation, to get payment for their work as well. So I think that it's now we're in this new world of hundreds and millions of images being used and scraped. It's some kind of like framework needs to be applied, similar to see the music industry, the way that went. And now you have the platform Spotify, and every time something's played, you get a credit. So maybe there's some kind of model there, like other industries have used, that could be applied to the art industry. And yeah, I just think on the other side with artists that are using AI, I would just say and I come from a background of helping museums use social media, and I was definitely one of those people that Robert just mentioned, actually breaking the rules and just getting images up on social media. I mean, there was a time where you couldn't take a camera into the exhibition space for fear of someone taking a photo and then putting it up online. And obviously now it's completely changed. Museums are, please bring your mobile, or please put it on Instagram, because they understand the power of, of technology to distribute, the artist and the name, and the long-term effect of, getting recognition off the back of that, someone like taking a photo of their mobile. So hopefully, if things do work out with AI, it could be incredibly productive, and the long tail effect that artists might get a lot more money off the back of it, providing they are credited. And yeah, let's see what that platform looks like. If it is something like Spotify, or something like that, who knows? But yeah, I'm interested to see.
Yeah, I love that balance of like breaking the rules, but also, being conscious of other people's work and seeing how that evolves over time. Robert, Alex, I'm wondering do you have any projects of the year that involves AI or generative art that you can give us some insight to on how your process is when you create art?
So for me, I mean, I think I think it's actually almost better to speak to. I can speak to some of the projects I've made using AI. I can also speak to projects that I've seen that I think are really kind of important. Some of the work, I think AI is kind of, it's, as a tool, I think it's kind of quite banal. Like it's the law of averages. That's effectively what it is, and it's using the perspective. It's turning your head backwards to try and create something and look forward. So you're only training yourself on the data set of the past, and that's why quite often when you see like just kind of GAN imagery, it always looks like rehashes of kind of old master painting, and that's kind of fundamentally uninteresting. And it's kind of this law of averages. So I think what's really interesting is that when artists use AI in combination with something else, or they use it in a kind of performative way, or a relational way, when it engages with a community, and then the community can help shape that artwork. And that's where AI as a kind of visual tool really helps kind of straddle the inputs of a community. And I can speak to a number of different works. I made a work last year, which was an avatar, a kind of AI-generated avatar that was fed a manifesto that I wrote on NFTs. And the idea was that the avatar was placed out into a number of different metaverses where it could speak to 100, 200 people at one time and machine learn based on their responses. And the idea there was that this manifesto, which was kind of figured through this character, would shape and change over time based on the machine learning of that, of all the responses and questions that were fed to that avatar. So it's kind of like a living, breathing manifesto, which is kind of very different to the kind of formal idea of a manifesto, which is this kind of fixed thing that's delivered in stone and is a historical document. And so there, what was actually happening is over time, the kind of creative direction of that work comes less from me and more from the community. So with each question that is asked to that avatar or that AI, the work becomes more the audience's work or the community's work than it does mine. And you can see that in projects like Botto as well, which I think is a very kind of interesting use of like Web3 mechanics and AI generation, where a community gets to vote, a community of token holders gets to vote on the creative direction of that AI. And it kind of, you can see how that voting mechanism over time changes the nature of what that AI is creating. It also works really well with projects like Pax Lost Poets, where you're able to generate 28,000 unique AI portraits, which were actually visually quite interesting in one series. And that's a kind of scale of art making that would never be able to happen, not even on kind of, the basic trait features of general avatar projects. And so I think those are kind of like three different ways where AI can be kind of leveraged interestingly from a creative point of view. But I think ultimately, to kind of recap, it's like, does this involve some sort of community direction? Does this involve the combination with either voting or smart contracting or some form of Web3 mechanism like Botto does? Or does it just involve scale and allow an artist to reach an audience at a level that is really interesting, which is what kind of Pact did. So I think those are kind of three interesting areas for artists to be working with AI.
I think, sorry, if I could just jump in, I think there's such great examples there. But I think artists don't need to worry so much as well, because a lot of great art, or people who love art, you want to understand who the artist is as well. And the concept is so important, with the birth of like conceptual art, like what is that deep concept behind it that a human is doing? And, and some really powerful great art, especially the art that I love, is, really emotional, emotive works, that can only be done arguably by a human. And people want to find out, like Robert just mentioned with Pact, that he has got a concept that which is very, very unique. And then on the flip side, you've got AI, which is just pumping out lots of very images, some very, majority very, very boring, just like Robert was saying. But I think art is deeper than that. If you really love art, it's that emotional, it's that story, it's that journey, it's how it engages with you as a person and your background. And I think that's really true art, whatever art is.
Yeah, I agree. I think the question is kind of, the question that AI provokes is, and I think what's interesting for art and image making, just on a separate tangent, is that AI is more interesting as images than it is text. And that's why I think people are so excited about AI, because there's much more ambiguity in images. And that's what AI is showing us, is that like an AI can read text and really understand. And that's what ChatGPT and kind of all these neural net language models generators have done. They can provide you back formulaically like kind of perfect answers. But in art, obviously, we're not looking for perfection. And what it shows is that when an AI is looking at images, there's a huge amount of ambiguity that it's getting. And so even like in the most banal images, there'll be quirks to that image, which are quite interesting. I guess what's kind of feedback on Jesse's point, this idea of human emotion, the idea of being able to look forward, of having your own emotional character as an artist that shapes the way that you view the world, rather than being an AI which is shaped on the law of averages or the law of everything. The question then becomes, in order to make kind of interesting AI art, like, what does that make you? Are you just a really good prompt engineer? Like, are you really good at thinking about the questions that get an AI to produce something really interesting or really different, or right at the margins of what the AI does? I think that's kind of important. And then on the flip side is like, as Jesse said, like, does AI invalidate human effort? I mean, we just talked about kind of AIs that kind of synthesize like old master painting or traditional kind of art making styles, or even like labor intensive digital art making styles. What happens to human effort when everything can kind of just be regenerated? I think that's kind of interesting. And then obviously, like, maybe the last thing on that point is like, if you think about AI as the law of averages, what happens in a world where synthetic media outweighs non-synthetic media, and the AI starts training on itself, which I think actually a lot of people have already written, started talking about that's already happened, that there's a gross amount of gross, I mean like a non-trivial amount of data that AIs are feeding on, which have been recreated by itself. And then you get into this kind of where culture becomes a kind of circular death spiral, where it's just kind of feeding on itself. So I think what we'll probably see is like a great wave of AI art making. and then we'll see in response to that a great wave of kind of return back to kind of human personal art making. This is what is exciting at the moment, but at some point it's going to get saturated quite quickly, and then we'll return back to kind of human made work. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I like your take on your projections for what is to come when this cycle. Jesse, do you have any last thoughts on where you think AI will go and where that cycle will take us before we end with our last question?
No, I'm just going to be really boring and just agree with everything Robert just said there. I think, life is up and down, swings and roundabouts, and, it swings one way into AI, then it'll swing back into more motive-led art. But I love the way things change, and you have these grenades that are thrown into the art world, NFTs, now it's AI, it just keeps people's minds really open. And, and I love the way the art world is now starting to bring in technology, people who work in technology, and, creativity being something for everyone, so yeah, I just can't wait to see, what happens next. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's also interesting because I think it's one of these things, like I've been writing this book, and everyone talks about how NFTs were the kind of gateway drug to crypto, and how art was actually the first kind of killer app for crypto. And it's kind of interesting that like art is the world and crypto to the world. Like there's probably a mainstay of people that have bought an NFT and that was their first bought art as an NFT, and that was their first interaction with crypto. And the same thing is going to happen with AI, and it's happening at the moment, where people will have a go creating an AI image, or they will enjoy an AI image, or they'll see an AI image, and that will be their first interaction with AI. And in both things, art is this kind of pathway to a conversation with these new technologies. And I think it's just to like meditate on that, like as a point, it's like, a lot of people think that art is kind of sits on the fringe of society, that it's not as important, that it's not as popular as music. It doesn't garner the same attention. But it's just been really interesting to see that these two major technological breakthroughs have been kind of they've gone through the lens of art as their first vehicle to kind of engage with people. And I think that's just like super promising for kind of art's raison d'etre for, moving forward. It's cool to see.
Yeah, I love that all these pathways started through art. And I think before we want to go have some time for questions, just because there have been questions in the comments. But last question to the artists, and what are some tips that you guys have for those who want to enter that space, who are super curious to learn about AI or even try to create their own first artwork? I guess Robert first, and then Jesse.
My suggestion would be, I would start small, start with DALL-E and then go through to Stable Diffusion. And, it's interesting, like, AI is actually easier to engage with as an artist than like a lot of other tech stacks that you have to conquer. Like in generative art, like you don't, to create AI, like the platforms and the abstraction is already there. So it's quite easy to get to, and to build your own data sets are quite easy. So yeah, I think it's exciting. Like a huge amount of creators will be able to engage in AI in a way that like engaging in generative art is quite a high barrier to entry, or engaging in smart contract based work. There's a very high barrier to entry technically. So yeah, I would just say fire up Google and get going.
Yeah, my mantra is always just do it, which I think is think Nike use that. My God, but but yeah, just do it. Just jump in, and you just got to do it, and don't hold back. Um, when I was first getting into, I mean, art was the only thing I could do really, and my teacher at the time, he said, just don't even think about it. Just open a, just draw, And the same thing here. Just, now it's put your laptop on or whatever, do it through your mobile phone and just do it and see what journey you go on. But there's no right or wrong, and art is all about learning and discovering yourself, and so yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, really, really great discussion. I think there's a lot to be learned here, and there's a lot to look forward to as these kind of worlds collide. And how do the Web3 infrastructure and elements then support what's being created and where kind of the industry is going? So really awesome to kind of dive into that stuff. We have a few minutes here, so we wanted to open it up for anybody that may have a question for any of our guests here, whether that be how Capture app is approaching the way that the stuff is brought on chain, the numbers protocol, or even for Robert Alice here around art. So yeah, going to give a second to jump, hit the mic button, request up to be a speaker. We want to make sure we respect our guest time too, so we'll keep the questions specifically towards this topic. So yeah, request up, I'll add you up. And then we'll just take a few questions before we wrap things up. So while we wait, we just have to get a little bit of good energy and good vibe coming in. So I know someone's here to bring it, but let's see if he has a question too.
What's good, family? Yeah, it rugs when I first come up, so I missed the first part, but I heard vibe, so I'm here, and I always love the good vibes. Love to see the AVAX family in here, and this has been a dope space with numbers protocol. So, yeah, I got a question as a musician, and we're doing music, NFTs, and stuff on Avalanche. Are there any? I know we mentioned Spotify and some stuff in the conversation, but are there any plans to expand the protocol to different mediums such as like music, videos, literary works, things like that?
Yes, we're looking at all verticals. But I think, I think what Robert eloquently said, and I had known internally, but I was never able to vocalize it, was the way people have been, it seems like, interacting with these technologies for the first time, has been through the medium of art. And so, like, I think as time progresses, you'll start to see how, how our blockchain specifically, but even more technologies as they emerge, like how they start interacting with verticals like music, like film, whatever the expression may be, right? So I just think for us, like where we started was here because it was very clear, right? And just I think it's a time game. As time goes on, we'll start to see those expressions happen more, and we'll lean in more and be leaders there.
And I love the fact that it was brought up that there's a lot of copywriting and we can there's a lot to learn from different aspects like music where they're attributing different tracks to different artists. Like I love that there's could be some thoughts there to kind of collaborate across different art mediums to help kind of define what the best practices are for AI in just art itself, but later to music and fashion, etc. But those are all things that we're thinking to do on Avalanche with NFTs, and we're so excited to have Numbers with us because they can be our go-to person to advise on these hard topics that everyone is talking about today.
Yeah,
Amazing.
sorry to echo Stephanie a bit on like the digital medias. I think arts can be in different forms. So music is also as one, and for numbers is that the traceability for the digital assets. The asset could be any kind of a digital file. So if you have been spending a whole week for making this beautiful music, if I am the artist, I would definitely wanna like to keep my content authenticity, to protect my creations at this digital era. So I would love to encourage all the artists or any form of content creators to check out numbers or to check out captures to see that how we can really help you to to get your creations secure at the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for chiming in there, Natalie, because I think bringing it all the way back to how the protocol itself is going to help these efforts around that verification step and that authenticity that can be built around all the stuff that Robert and Jesse were talking about. There's an important element to that to keep that transparency and that immutability forever driving all the way back to the artist. So thanks for the question. And thanks for coming up and sharing the good vibes. We're going to add up our next guest here for another question for our guests. So, Jet Society Poetry, you're up.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for bringing me up. I really like this conversation. This was one of the most interesting conversations I've heard in a couple weeks, actually. It's a very philosophical question, philosophical conversation. Philosophy is something that I am really interested in. It is my passion. It is my background, especially the question with human, the human, condition and its relationship with the advancements of technology. I like what Robert was saying. This sort of like trajectory, this postmodern, post-human trajectory where there's this database scan of databases, essentially this like simulation of simulation or simulacra of simulacra. And, I wanted to ask Jesse what his ideas were in terms of the trajectory of our relationship with technology. Yeah, I mean, that's my question.
For me, it's about getting art out to as many people as possible. And it's always been a mission to get people who've never set foot into a museum before, to get to kind of fine art. And digital and technology is just, wherever you are, you can access and see great artists and learn and educate yourself. And I think the role of technology has just been, a lifesaver, because museums, and especially the art world, and the galleries, are quite daunting places. I even get a little bit like, anxious about going into some of the big galleries, because they have this kind of like feeling that you've got to know what you're looking at. You've got to enjoy it. And I feel, online you can really kind of be yourself and understand, and like it or don't like it, like you would with a friend. So I think, the role of technology to reach people has been key. And I it's just putting the power in artists' hands to kind of, understand how they can self-fund themselves, how they can manage, works that they're producing in a way that they have ownership. It's just brilliant. A lot of the stuff they don't teach you, when you're at college, and you're kind of like dropped out onto the street, and you have to figure out how to make a career as an artist, or you might want to be an artist, when you're 80. It's like, online and through technology, you just got all these tools, whether it's like Web 2 and social media to build up a collective following. You do sadly have to know how to market yourself, or you could live in a cave and be an artist. But I mean, so you look at the likes of Picasso and Warhol back in the day, how, they understand, mass media, and, So you can, there's lots of artists out there you can just Google and learn from, and understand how they made it. But the most important thing, I think, is technology bring is this kind of ability to talk with others, like we are right now, about the power of art, power of creativity, and the individual impact it has on all of us. It's unique, just like an NFT. Not sounding too cheesy there, but
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that there's this balance, right? There's this balance where, yes, technology opens up the world. It makes the world smaller. It connects us. It allows all of us to um, essentially create at any point in the lifespan. But at the same time, there's this sort of insidious um, nature where we are at a point in time where, when it comes to AI, as was mentioned, the databases scanning databases, or essentially the simulacra of simulacra, we come to a point where there's this like inability to recognize reality, because reality is based off of simulations that have, again, ad infinitum, right? This like perpetual simulation against simulation. So there's like this moment in time where we are outside of this, of the feedback loop of creation. It's quite a very interesting conundrum, And so, I really like what both of you were saying. So again, this was quite an interesting conversation, and it really piqued my interest. And because I write a lot of poetry regarding this, and a lot of my art is also, this analysis on, um, this postmodern analysis with like humanity and technology. And so, thank you for this.
there's some brilliant thoughts there as well. Thank you. Thanks for sharing as well.
Yes.
I got to head
Robert.
off, guys, but thank you so much, everyone, and look forward to speaking more soon. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Cheers, guys.
No, really, thank you, Robert Ellis, for joining us. Really great to have
Cheers.
you on here from the artist perspective. So thank you for joining us. We're going to wrap it up here as well. And I know a lot of people got to go. So thank you so much to our special guests from Numbers, Robert Ellis, Jesse, for your amazing insight and for sharing more about what Capture is doing. Really appreciate you coming on here. Best of luck to the Numbers team. They're going to be pitching at South by Southwest this weekend. If you're down there, you can stop by booth. I think it's 1714 at the Creative Industry Expo. So they're out in Austin doing their thing there. So best of luck. Stay tuned for more coming from Numbers and the Capture app on what's being built on Avalanche. And we're going to be having a lot more of these conversations around art and AI and content that's being created. Jesse, thank you so much. Tiff and Dom, thanks for leading the way here. Thank you all for joining us. We'll have this Spaces recording up on YouTube next week so everyone can listen to it. But stay tuned for more conversations, and we will see you all next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Cheers. Bye.